Robert Baratheon, a name whispered with reverence and resentment, often in the same breath. The king who shattered the Targaryen dynasty, the warrior who claimed the Iron Throne, the man who seemingly had it all. But behind the booming laughter and the boisterous feasts, a shadow lingered, the ghost of Lyanna Stark, a constant haunting reminder of promises broken and a love forever lost. We find Robert not on the battlefield, nor holding court, but slumped in his solar, a half-empty flagon of wine clutched in his hand. The flickering candlelight casts dancing shadows on the walls, mirroring the turmoil within him. He stares blankly ahead, his gaze lost in the intricate tapestries depicting Baratheon victories, victories that now feel hollow, Pyrrhic even. Tatai-Stassen, long, weary sigh escapes Robert's lips. He takes a large gulp of wine, the liquid doing little to ease the ache in his heart. Lyanna. The name is a silent prayer, a desperate plea to a memory that refuses to fade. He remembers her vibrant spirit, her defiant streak, her unwavering loyalty. He remembers the stolen moments, the whispered promises under the godswood, the dreams they shared of a life together, and then the Tower of Joy, the blood, the whispers, the crushing weight of a love torn apart by war and deceit. He slams the flagon down on the table, the sudden noise echoing in the room. Frustration and anger simmer beneath the surface. Damn Rhaegar, damn the Targaryens, damn this cursed throne. They stole her from me, and what do I have to show for it? A kingdom drowning in debt, a wife I can barely tolerate, and bastards scattered across the realm like seeds sown in barren soil. The thought stings, bastards, the living embodiment of his infidelity, the physical manifestation of his inability to remain true to Lyanna's memory. He knows their names, their faces, fleeting glimpses caught in the bustling streets of King's Landing, whispers from informants, occasional awkward encounters. Maya Stone, a spirited girl with his own fiery hair. Gendry, a strong blacksmith's apprentice with the Baratheon build. Others, nameless faces lost in the shadows. He provides for them, of course, a pittance from the royal coffers, enough to keep them fed and clothed. But what kind of life is that? To be born with royal blood, yet denied a royal name, a royal destiny. He rises unsteadily to his feet, pacing the room like a caged beast. The wine has loosened his tongue and amplified his self-reproach. What kind of king am I? A conqueror, yes. A warrior, undoubtedly. But a king, a father. I sit on this damn throne, surrounded by sycophants and schemers, while my own children are left to fend for themselves, branded with the shame of their birth. He pauses, his gaze falling upon a portrait of Lyanna hanging on the wall. Her painted eyes seem to pierce through him, judging his failures, his weaknesses. A wave of guilt washes over him, a potent cocktail of regret and remorse. He stumbles towards the portrait, reaching out a trembling hand to touch the painted surface. His voice is barely a whisper, thick with emotion. Lyanna, forgive me. I've failed you. I've failed them. I've failed myself. Suddenly a sharp pain lances through his head, a blinding flash of light that forces him to stumble back, clutching his temples. He cries out, a guttural sound of pain and confusion. He collapses onto a nearby chair, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The room seems to spin around him, the candlelight blurring into swirling colors. A vision, a dream, or perhaps just the drunken ramblings of a remorseful king. He sees faces, his bastards, their faces clear and vibrant, no longer shrouded in the shadows. He sees Maya Stone, not as a humble stable girl, but as a skilled rider, leading a charge alongside him on the battlefield. He sees Gendry, not as a simple blacksmith, but as a master armorer, forging weapons of unparalleled strength for the royal army. He sees other faces too, Boys and girls with Baratheon features, each possessing a unique talent, a hidden potential waiting to be unlocked. But then the vision shifts, the vibrant colors fading into a bleak, desolate landscape. He sees his bastards again, but this time they are not united. They are fractured, divided, each vying for power, each fueled by resentment and ambition. He sees them tearing the realm apart, their claims to the throne igniting a bloody civil war that makes Robert's rebellion look like a mere squabble. The vision intensifies, the images becoming more chaotic, more terrifying. He sees the Iron Throne consumed by flames, the Seven Kingdoms plunged into darkness. The screams of the innocent echo in his ears, a symphony of suffering that chills him to the bone. "No!" he cries out, the sound tearing through the silence of his solar. He clutches his head, desperate to banish the horrific images from his mind. The vision slowly recedes, the pain in his head subsiding, leaving him weak and trembling. He opens his eyes, his gaze unfocused, his mind reeling from the experience. What was that? A warning, a glimpse into a future he is destined to create, or a chance to avert disaster? He stares at the portrait of Lyanna again, her painted eyes now seeming to hold a glimmer of hope, a silent plea for redemption. The answer, he realizes, is clear. He cannot undo the past. He cannot bring Lyanna back, but he can shape the future. He can choose to embrace his bastards, to acknowledge their potential, to raise them not as shadows, but as legitimate heirs, worthy of the Baratheon name. He rises to his feet, his movements now purposeful, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. No more hiding, no more denial. I am Robert Baratheon, King of the Seven Kingdoms, and I will not let my legacy be one of regret and ruin. I will claim my bastards, raise them as my own, and forge a new destiny for my house, a destiny worthy of Lyanna's memory. He takes another swig of wine, this time not seeking oblivion, but drawing strength from the fiery liquid. He strides towards the door, his footsteps echoing with renewed purpose. Tomorrow, everything changes. He exits the solar, leaving behind the shadows of the past and stepping into the uncertain light of the future. The weight of the Iron Throne still rests upon his shoulders, but now he carries it with a sense of purpose, a glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he can finally become the king he was meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, find a measure of peace in the process. Robert Baratheon, a name synonymous with rebellion, war, and, well, not exactly synonymous with kingly governance, is it? But what if, just what if, a flicker of responsibility ignited? Within the heart of the stag, what if Robert, spurred by a vision, decided to truly rule? Let's delve into a scenario where Robert Baratheon, King of the Seven Kingdoms, finally takes the reins and forges a realm anew. The victory at the Trident, the Iron Throne seized, but the realm is fractured. Robert, no fool despite. His boisterous nature recognizes this. The war has left scars, physical, emotional, and political. Houses decimated, loyalties shattered, and the coffers? Well, let's just say, Littlefinger's already eyeing them like a hungry wolf. But this time, things are different. Robert, shaken by his revelation, isn't content to drown his sorrows in wine and leave the kingdom to Jon Arryn. No, this time he's present. He's attentive. He's almost sober. The first order of business? Rebuilding, not just the castles and keeps, but the very foundation of the realm's trust. Robert surprisingly starts small. He visits the Riverlands, not on a glorious hunt, but to witness the devastation firsthand. He sees the hollow eyes of the starving, the skeletal remains of burned-out villages, the simmering resentment in the hearts of those who once fought. And for the dragon, and something clicks. That legendary Baratheon empathy, usually reserved for lost loves and fallen comrades, extends to his subjects. He doesn't just hear about the suffering, he sees it. "7 hells," he mutters, the usual. Bravado replaced with genuine remorse. This is on me too." He orders royal funds, not a pittance but a substantial amount, directed towards rebuilding the Riverlands. But this isn't a simple handout. Robert, wary of corruption, puts Stannis in charge. Yes, dour, humorless Stannis. Perfect. Stannis, with his unyielding sense of justice, ensures that the funds reach those who need them most, not greedy lords looking to line their own pockets. Stannis, of course, is thrilled. He sees this as a sacred duty, a chance to prove his worth. And he does. He rebuilds granaries, restores irrigation systems, and even manages to win over some of the recalcitrant houses of Crackclaw Point, not with charm, Stannis has none, but with fairness and unwavering honesty. Now about those recalcitrant houses, Robert understands that lingering Targaryen sympathies are a threat, but he also recognizes that Dorne, in particular, has legitimate grievances. The brutal deaths of Elia Martell and her children cast a long shadow. Sending an army would only inflame the situation. Instead, Robert does something unexpected. He sends Jon Arryn, the wise, respected hand of the king. Jon travels to Sunspear, bearing not swords, but a personal letter from Robert expressing his regret and a sincere desire for peace. The Dornish, understandably, are skeptical. Prince Doran Martell, a master of patience and intrigue, is not easily swayed. He demands justice for Elia, punishment for the Lannisters. Jon Arryn, knowing that alienating the Lannisters at this stage would be disastrous, walks a tightrope. He offers concessions, promises to curb Lannister influence, but refuses to throw them to the wolves. The negotiations are tense, fraught with mistrust. In the end, Doran agrees to a truce, a fragile peace. Dorne will not rise in rebellion, but they will never truly embrace Robert as their king. It's a compromise, but a necessary one. Robert understands this. "We can't win them all, Ned," he admits to his old friend, "but we can keep them from tearing us apart." With internal stability, somewhat achieved, Robert turns his attention to external threats. And there's a big one brewing. The Greyjoy rebellion. Balon Greyjoy, Lord of the Iron Islands, sees weakness in the newly established Baratheon dynasty. He declares independence and unleashes his Ironborn Reavers upon the western coast. Lannisport, the Fair Isle, even the Arbor, all are ravaged by their attacks. This time, though, Robert doesn't hesitate. He doesn't dither or delegate, he acts. He summons his banners, orders the royal fleet to assemble, and prepares to crush the rebellion with the full force of the crown. He arrives in the Riverlands, a whirlwind of energy. The usually languid Robert is gone, replaced by the battle-hardened warrior who led the rebellion against the Mad King. He inspires his troops, reminding them of their duty to protect the realm. "These Ironborn think they can take what they want," he roars. "They think we're weak, divided. Well, we'll show them what happens when you cross the Stag." The royal fleet, led by Stannis, who surprisingly proves to be a capable naval commander, inflicts a crushing defeat on the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle. The path is clear for an invasion of the Iron Islands. Robert leads the invasion himself, landing on Pike with a force of seasoned soldiers. The fighting is brutal, the Ironborn fierce, but Robert, at the head of his troops, storms castle after castle, crushing all resistance. He accepts Balon Greyjoy's surrender, but not before making an example of the Iron Islands. The longships are burned, the Iron Price is abolished, and Balon's youngest son, Theon, is taken as a ward of the Starks, a guarantee of future good behavior. The Greyjoy rebellion, intended to destabilize the realm, has the opposite effect. It strengthens Robert's hold on the throne. Houses that were wavering in their loyalty now flock to his banner, impressed by his swift and decisive action. Robert returns to King's Landing a conquering hero. His political power is at its zenith. He has rebuilt the Riverlands, negotiated a truce with Dawn, and crushed the Greyjoy rebellion. He has proven himself to be not just a rebel leader, but a king. But Stannis and Renly, ever the pragmatists, warn him of a growing threat: the Lannisters. Tywin Lannister, always scheming, is subtly increasing his influence at court, placing his allies in key positions. "We can't let him control us, Robert," Stannis argues. "He'll turn the realm into a Lannister fiefdom." Robert reluctantly agrees. He decides to make a symbolic gesture. He removes Jaime Lannister from the Kingsguard, replacing him with a more trustworthy knight, Conry Penrose. This decision, predictably, does not sit well with Cersei. "How dare you dismiss my brother like some common serving boy," she demands, storming into Robert's chambers. "He's the Kingslayer, Cersei," Robert retorts. "He murdered the king he was sworn to protect." "Am I supposed to just ignore that?" "He secured your throne," Cersei shouts. "My family's the only reason you're sitting on that damn chair." Robert sighs. I know. But Tywin is getting too powerful. I need to show him that I'm still in charge." The argument escalates, turning into a familiar shouting match. But then something unexpected happens. Robert pauses, takes a deep breath, and looks at Cersei with a surprising degree of understanding. "Look," he says, his voice softer than she's ever heard it. "We both know we don't want to be married to each other, but we're stuck with it. So what do you say we call a truce?" Cersei is taken aback. "A truce?" "Yeah," Robert replies. "We stop fighting, stop sniping at each other. We act like husband and wife, at least in public, for the sake of the realm." Cersei considers this. She realizes that Robert is right. Their constant bickering is weakening the crown, and besides, a truce might give her more room to maneuver, more opportunities to advance her own agenda. "And what do I get out of this truce?" she asks, her eyes narrowed. "I'll let you keep Hemi," Robert replies. "You can name him captain of your guard if you want. Just keep him away from the Kingsguard." Cersei is surprised. This is more than she expected. "Acceptable," she says, nodding slowly. And so, an unlikely truce is forged between Robert Baratheon and Cersei Lannister. It's not love, not even friendship, but it's a start. They attend feasts together, exchange polite conversation, and even manage to present a united front to the court. Robert, surprisingly, finds that he enjoys the absence of constant conflict. Cersei, in turn, appreciates Robert's newfound respect, even if it's grudging. A year later, the realm is stunned when Cersei announces that she is pregnant. Robert, overjoyed, embraces his wife and declares the child his heir. The people cheer, and for the first time in years, the royal marriage seems like more than just a political arrangement. There's even an unspoken agreement between them. Robert will turn a blind eye to Cersei's extracurricular activities, as long as any children born in the king's bed are acknowledged as Baratheons and heirs to the throne. In return, Robert swears to protect Cersei's other children, should the truth of their parentage ever be revealed. It's a pragmatic, somewhat cynical arrangement, but it works. For now, the realm is at peace, the crown is secure, and Robert Baratheon, against all odds, is proving to be a competent king. But beneath the surface, tensions are simmering, plots are being hatched, and the seeds of future conflict are being sown. Littlefinger, ever the opportunist, is weaving his web of intrigue, slowly gaining control of the realm's finances. Varys, the spider, is whispering in the shadows, spreading rumors and manipulating events. And the truth about Cersei's children, hidden for now, threatens to explode and shatter the fragile peace. Robert Baratheon may have forged a realm anew, but can he keep it from falling apart? That, my friends, is a question for another time. Littlefinger is losing his claws. The noose tightens, but this is no simple game of cat and mouse. This is Westeros, after all, a land where whispers are sharper than steel and secrets are currency. Get comfy, folks, because things are about to get messy. So picture this: the realm is finally catching its breath after the Greyjoy rebellion. Robert's riding high. His truce with Cersei is, well, let's just say it's working, mostly. But beneath the surface, the rot is spreading. Remember Littlefinger, the master of coin? Turns out that financial wizardry isn't exactly magic. It's more like a cleverly disguised pyramid scheme. He's not pulling dragons out of thin air. He's building a house of cards, one shady loan at a time. See, Littlefinger isn't relying on the great houses for funds. He's preying on the smaller houses, the merchants with coin to spare. He's got them hooked on loans with interest rates so high they'd make a loan shark blush. New harbors, fortified strongholds, irrigation projects, they all sound great. But they're built on a foundation of debt, lining Littlefinger's pockets and tightening his grip on the realm's economy. And, of course, the ones who are profiting are his cronies. Stannis, ever the watchful hand, sees through the illusion. He's a numbers guy, meticulous, and he notices the discrepancies, the inflated prices, the unqualified cronies in positions of power. It's like watching a meticulous accountant trying to unravel a tangled web of corruption while everyone else is distracted by shiny objects. He starts digging, asking questions, and poking around in Littlefinger's carefully constructed world. It's like disturbing a nest of vipers, folks. During a heated exchange in the small council, Stannis drops a bombshell suggesting a ban on brothels in King's Landing. Now, that gets a reaction. Not from Littlefinger, of course. He's too slick to get riled up. But Robert, well, he's not pleased, to say the least. I'm just going to point out that the irony of the moralizing Stannis and the whoremongering Robert here isn't lost on us. But Stannis persists. He tells Robert that Littlefinger owns 3 out of 5 brothels in this city, that he is fattening his purse off of them. He informs the king that he suspects that he is lying about his finances. He's convinced that Littlefinger's playing a much bigger game, that he isn't just skimming a few gold dragons. So with the king's permission, Stannis decides to do some research. Robert, ever the pragmatist, grudgingly agrees, ordering the brothels closed temporarily, citing a pox outbreak. Yeah, right. He gives Stannis half a year to dig up dirt. And in true Stannis fashion, he dedicates himself to the task, spending months poring over ledgers, tracking the money, uncovering the web of deceit. Finally, he presents his findings to Robert, Renly, Jon Arryn, and even Cersei. He shows them the evidence, the inflated construction costs, the insane interest rates, the houses drowning in debt. And he's got a plan. Dismantle Littlefinger's web of allies slowly, strip away his control and brace for the economic fallout. Because let's face it, chaos is Littlefinger's playground. They agree on a plan: cut spending, remove Littlefinger's officials, look closer into his businesses, and set aside money to bail out houses that are in debt. That last one is a noble act, but even the noble can be exploited, right? The ban on brothels is lifted because, hey, the common folk get restless without their recreational activities. The show must go on. Meanwhile, they start targeting Littlefinger's cronies, arresting them for various offenses, from selling overpriced wine to mixing husks into the grain. But as they remove one, another must take their place. Who do the Baratheons turn to? You guessed it, Tywin Lannister. The only man with enough connections and ruthlessness to replace Littlefinger's network. So, we have the Baratheons, with their newfound sobriety and sense of responsibility, teaming up with the Lannisters, whose motives are always suspect. It's a recipe for disaster, folks. Meanwhile, Stannis and Arryn are secretly sending gold to houses at risk, trying to stabilize their finances. Bit by bit, they start clawing back control of the treasury. Littlefinger is losing his grip, the little detail is losing his claws, and Robert is celebrating with a drink or two. But things are far from over. The game is afoot, and Littlefinger is not one to go down without a fight. Robert muses that it will not end easily, and Robert is right. This is Westeros after all. And then comes the whispers, the subtle poison seeping into the realm's bloodstream. In the halls of the Red Keep, in the dives of Flea Bottom, among the Reachman envoys, the talk is the same. Prince Leor is not fit to rule. The boy isn't a warrior, isn't like his father, isn't strong. The old rumors resurface, the ones about his true parentage. Is he really Robert's son? It's like watching a Shakespearean tragedy unfold, folks, with ambition, betrayal, and illegitimacy all swirling together. The whispers spread, fueled by Varys, the master of whisperers, who's always playing his own game. He whispers in the court, planting seeds of doubt. The whispers get worse, and they start to suggest Leor is not even a Baratheon, but a Lannister, born from the brood of Cersei and Jaime's unnatural activity. Of course, Varys is fanning the flames, ensuring the rumors spread far and wide. His loyalty is about as stable as the Iron Throne itself. This is the real game, folks, not just controlling the finances, but controlling the narrative, manipulating the truth, and undermining the king's authority. It doesn't take long for the rumors to reach the court, where an unfortunate lord makes the mistake of voicing his doubts. Of course, this unleashes Robert's fury. The boy is Robert's son, Robert's blood. Robert says he will sit on the Iron Throne after him. And gods help the fool who says otherwise, but even Robert's rage can't silence the whispers. In private, the doubts gnaw at him. He sees the boy practicing in the yard, struggling with the sword, and he wonders if he's truly fit to rule. He's reminded of all the rumors that suggest his son may not be his. That's not good for anyone. That night, in his chambers, he confronts Cersei, demanding to know the truth. Cersei denies the rumors, but Robert presses her. If not him, then who? Who have you lain with? He needs to know who to protect. 7 hells, Cersei finally cracks, admitting. The unthinkable, it's Jaime. Robert goes silent. For once, there are no roars, no curses, only a chilling silence. In Westeros, there are some things that are beyond the pale, and this is one of them. You could have taken any knight of Colche, your own brother. The world shifts beneath his feet. With this, Littlefinger can fling whatever lies he wants, and they'll eat it up if this gets out. It will not get out. He issues a grim warning. This cannot get out, but make no mistake, I won't take any blonde bastards from you. The damage has been done, the wound has been inflicted, and the whispers are only going to get louder, more venomous. In the meantime, it doesn't change the situation at hand. The whispers spread to every corner of the Red Keep, and that which has been heard cannot be unheard. Though they think themselves in private, their story has been heard. Every passing look to the court seems to judge the prince and queen for their misdeeds. And as the crown wavers, Varys moves in the boudoirs of the Red Keep. Ravens take wing with letters bearing no seal. Couriers slip through the alleys with sacks of gold. The Blackfires begin their rise to power. The time has come. Robert's dynasty looks weaker, and some begin to whisper that it is their chance. Ships blacken the horizon as the Sel swords land upon the Dornish coast. Not as raiders, but as guests. Prince Doran opens his gates. He had been among the first Varys contacted, and they offer their swords to the Targaryen pretenders. Robert finds himself in a precarious position. On one hand, he cannot act against the rumors because they are lies, and as such, he cannot do anything without making it look like they're true. But on the other hand, the stability of his throne hangs in the balance, because as the rumor has spread so far across the kingdom, many begin to question whether his son has the authority to rule over them. Robert and co. must act quickly to preserve their legacy. Littlefinger is at the helm of it all, pressuring his faction over to them under Varys's command, which means noble houses burdened with a debt to Littlefinger now find themselves working under them. Pockets of rebellion flare in the Riverlands, the Reach, even the Stormlands as a result. And so the stage is set. A realm divided, a king betrayed, a prince doubted, and a pretender waiting in the wings. Westeros, as always, is a powder keg ready to explode. The whispers started subtly, like a creeping damp in the Red Keep's ancient stones. "Leor's not like Robert," they'd murmur. "Too bookish, too delicate." The jokes, cloaked as concern for the realm's stability, began to spread. How could a prince who preferred a bow to a warhammer ever hope to lead men in battle? Doubts, planted carefully by Varys and watered by Littlefinger's sly manipulations, blossomed into something far more dangerous than mere court gossip. They became a seed of rebellion. And then the hammer fell. Across the narrow sea, in Volantis and Tyrosh, whispers of their own turned to action. The Golden Company, ever hungry for coin and conquest, found a champion. Aegon Targaryen, or rather the pretender claiming that name, son of Rhaegar, rightful heir to the Iron Throne. His existence conveniently timed to coincide with the crisis of legitimacy in King's Landing was a spark to tinder. The Blackfyre loyalists, those who still clung to the dreams of Daemon and his descendants, saw their opportunity. For years, they had languished in exile, nursing their grievances and plotting their return. Now, with a Targaryen pretender at their head and the promise of support from powerful factions within Westeros, they were ready to gamble everything. But how could Aegon, or whatever sellsword commanded the Golden Company, afford to fund such an army? This answer came as Peter Baelish, pressured heavily by Lord Varys, turned the debts of the crown towards Aegon. It was his last and perhaps greatest gamble. Ships sailed, banners unfurled, and steel clashed on Westerosi soil once more. The landing was in the Dornish Marches, a region always simmering with resentment towards the Baratheon dynasty. Prince Doran Martell, ever the patient schemer, saw in Aegon a tool, a means to avenge Elia and her children. Whether he truly believed in Aegon's legitimacy mattered little. What mattered was the chaos he could unleash upon the realm. The rebellion spread like wildfire. Houses indebted to Littlefinger, those who had grown weary of Robert's rule or simply saw a chance to seize power for themselves, raised their banners in support of Aegon. The Riverlands, still scarred from the Greyjoy rebellion, erupted in flames once more. The Reach, ripe with ambition and resentment towards the Tyrells, proved a fertile ground for the Golden Company's advance. Even in the Stormlands, Robert's own heartland, some lords whispered treasonous doubts about Leor's fitness to rule. Robert, ever the warrior, answered the call. He gathered his loyal bannermen and rode south, determined to crush the rebellion and silence the doubters. Renly, ever the loyal brother, rode by his side. "This war is for Leor, isn't it?" Renly remarked as they reviewed troop formations. "Every swing of your hammer, every rebel you crush, is a testament to his right to the throne." Robert grunted, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Aye. They question his strength, his blood. I'll show them the strength of House Baratheon runs true, even in a boy who prefers books to battles." The initial battles were brutal and bloody. The Golden Company, renowned for their discipline and skill, proved a formidable foe. The Dornish, fighting on their own soil, knew every pass and defile. Robert, however, was a force of nature. He smashed through enemy lines, his warhammer a whirlwind of death and destruction. His presence inspired his men, turning the tide of battle after battle. But the war was far from over. News arrived that the real Aegon, or so he claimed, had landed in the Reach, bringing with him a fresh wave of support. Jon Connington, the Red Griffin, led the charge, promising to restore the Targaryen dynasty to its former glory. The Ironborn, ever eager for plunder, joined the fray, raiding coastal villages and sowing chaos in their wake. King's Landing braced for a siege. Stannis, grim and resolute, oversaw the city's defenses. Jon Arryn, his face etched with worry, advised Robert to safeguard the line of succession. "Take Lior and flee to the Westerlands," Arryn urged Cersei. "His claim must survive, even if the city falls." Cersei surprisingly agreed. The thought of her son dying in the streets of King's Landing, his throne usurped by a pretender, was unbearable. Under the cover of darkness, she and Lior, accompanied by a small retinue of loyal knights, slipped out of the city, seeking refuge with Tywin Lannister in Casterly Rock. But their escape was short-lived. Word of their flight reached Aegon, and a detachment of Golden Company riders, led by the ruthless Miles Toyne, gave chase. They cornered Lior's party in a narrow valley in the hills northeast of the Blackwater Rush. Outnumbered and outmatched, Lior's knights fought bravely, but they were no match for the Golden Company's veterans. Lior, watching his protectors fall, felt a surge of despair. He was no warrior, no Robert Baratheon. He was just a frail, bookish boy, the subject of whispers and doubts. But as he looked at the faces of his remaining men, the loyal few who were willing to die to protect him, something snapped within him. He wouldn't let them die in vain. "To the hills!" he shouted, his voice surprisingly firm. "We'll make our... Stand there!" The survivors scrambled up the rocky slopes, seeking whatever cover they could find. From their precarious perch, Lior surveyed the battlefield. The valley below was a scene of carnage. His knights lay dead or dying, their armor stained with blood. The Golden Company riders were closing in, eager to finish the job, but Lior saw something else, an opportunity. The rocky terrain, with its narrow paths and steep cliffs, favored a defender with archers. And Lior, for all his lack of skill with a warhammer, was a master of the bow. He ordered his archers to take position among the rocks, then grabbing a bow himself, he began to rain arrows upon the advancing enemy. The Golden Company riders, weighed down by their heavy armor, struggled to navigate the treacherous terrain. Lior's arrows found their marks, piercing gaps in their defenses, felling horses and riders alike. The valley echoed with the screams of the wounded and dying. Cersei, watching from a nearby ridge, was amazed. Her son, the boy she had always dismissed, as weak and frail, was holding his own against the Golden Company. He was fighting with a courage and determination she never knew he possessed. But the tide was about to turn. Aegon himself arrived, riding a massive war elephant brought from the east. The beast trumpeted, scattering Lior's men like leaves. The Golden Company riders, emboldened by their leader's arrival, surged forward, overwhelming the defenders. Lior's line began to buckle. Men broke and ran, seeking escape down the slopes. Only a handful of loyal soldiers remained, determined to protect their prince to the last. Lior drew an arrow, but his hands trembled. He was out of his depth. He was about to die. Then, a distraction. Cersei, desperate to save her son, hurled rocks at the elephant, drawing its attention. "Get away from him!" she screamed. "Come get me!" The elephant, enraged, turned towards Cersei, giving Lior a precious moment of respite. Seizing his chance, he notched another arrow. This time he didn't aim for the enemy soldiers. He aimed for the driver perched atop the elephant's neck. His arrow flew true, piercing the driver's throat. The elephant, now driverless, went berserk, trampling friend and foe alike. Chaos erupted. The Golden Company's lines broke, their formation shattered. Lior, seizing the opportunity, unleashed a final volley of arrows, picking off enemy soldiers one by one. But then he saw Aegon. The pretender, dismounted and scrambling to his feet, was rallying his troops. Lior knew he had to act fast. He drew his last arrow. He took aim. He fired. The arrow flew straight and true, piercing Aegon's throat. The pretender staggered, clutching at the shaft, then collapsed to the ground. Silence descended upon the valley. Lior, chest heaving, lowered his bow. His men stared at him, disbelieving. Their frail prince had slain a dragon's heir. The battle was won. News of Leor's victory spread like wildfire throughout Westeros. The boy who had been dismissed as weak and unfit to rule had proven his worth. He had defended his claim, not with a warhammer, but with his courage, his skill, and his wits. A day later, Tywin Lannister arrived with his army. He found Leor seated on a rock, his bow in his lap. But he saw something else too, a sword lying. Beside him, Blackfire. Leor had found the legendary blade amidst the chaos of battle, a symbol of the Blackfire Rebellion's ultimate defeat. It was a sign, Tywin realized, a symbol of Leor's destiny. When the Lannister army marched on King's Landing, Leor was at the forefront, Blackfire raised high in the air. The sight of the legendary sword inspired the defenders and struck fear into the hearts of the Golden Company. Jaime Lannister led a sortie from the city, scattering the invaders and slaying Jon Connington in single combat. The Blackfire Rebellion was crushed. When Robert returned to King's Landing, he found Leor seated on the Iron Throne, Blackfire across his lap. "If anyone still doubts my parentage or my ability to rule," Leor declared, his voice ringing with newfound confidence, "they are free to come forward and say it to my face." The lords of Westeros, humbled by Leor's courage and awed by his victory, knelt before him one by one. Even Stannis and Renly, who had once questioned his fitness to rule, bowed their heads in respect. Robert, watching his son from the back of the hall, felt a surge of pride. Leor may not have been the warrior he had envisioned, but he was a king, and a damn good one at that. Cersei, standing beside Robert, smiled. Her son had proven himself worthy of the Iron Throne, and in doing so, he had secured the future of House Baratheon. The whispers were silenced. The realm was secured. Leor Baratheon, the boy who preferred books to battles, had become a legend.